So to get things started, we usually like to learn about our guest's personal story. So would you share with our audience, what was your background, what was your upbringing, and how did that lead to really a career in public service and serving in the Obama administration?
Sure. Well, it goes all the way back to when my parents immigrated here to the U.S. and we settled in the Deep South, and we moved around quite a bit to lots of different small towns in the South. And so that was really quite, made quite an impression on me at the time. I came to, being in a lot of these different towns and cities like Chattahoochee, Florida, and Pineville, Louisiana, and Thomasville, Georgia, and places maybe a lot of folks on this podcast haven't heard about.
Never heard of, right?
I know. And so as a young kid and being one of, or the only Indian family in these small towns. And my dad had come over had finished his residency in England and was trained as a psychiatrist. So he was getting hired at these kind of regional mental health hospitals, kind of in these rural areas of the South where they really, really needed doctors. And so I get there and the experience of really kind of in the wake of the civil rights era, the dynamics between Black and white communities was pretty much kind of that experience even playing out in the schools. Kids kind of hung out with each other. There really wasn't a lot of kind of integration, definitely not in the neighborhoods and definitely not even kind of in the classrooms. And that was a little difficult for me to navigate and to try to figure out because, here was this brown kid that kind of no one could figure out like what she was about or who she was. And so, I began to kind of figure out that I could kind of move between these two groups. And what ended up happening is I would have friends who were, just African-American or just Caucasian, and they didn't really kind of mix with each other, but I could kind of move into these two different groups. And that had a very profound impression on me at a very young age. I think also my parents later on opened a clinic in the inner city in Savannah, Georgia, where I spent most of my childhood. So most of their patient population was in the African-American community. And they really had set themselves up as not just a clinic that was there for medical services, but they ended up really becoming this one-stop shop on a lot of issues, from applying for SSI to working on affordable housing, representing their clients or going to them in the courts, to kind of navigate the courts. And so I saw all of this as, this is what you do. Like, even if you are a new immigrant, and I know kind of, our experiences are all really different about how we adapt. I think, my parents showed me very early on that, there's a lot that you can do and contribute as a new immigrant. And then the best way, frankly, to kind of, move yourself into these new communities is to really become a part of those communities. So, I think that just, that experience was so impressionable. I think also moving on to my time at Spelman College, which is a historically Black college, that all kind of flowed to where I felt like, well, I wanted to do more. I wanted to be of service. I knew very early on that I wanted to do something where I was going to be, in the public service arena, serving others. And I think what was of great interest to me was really understanding kind of this dynamic of race and how it impacted communities. And I think Spelman was just an interesting experience because, I got a whole different perspective on history and culture and understanding a completely different community. And it wasn't just about kind of like reading or taking a class or maybe spending time with friends. It's like I was completely immersed, getting to know a different culture. And so that all, then becoming a civil rights lawyer, all of that just kind of flowed from that and my understanding of who I was from that experience of growing up in the South.